Now, before I officially begin, there are just two interesting things I want to share about this text. And if you're a Bible geek like me, you'll appreciate it. And if you're not, look up something interesting on your phone. This is the single longest chapter in Genesis. And with a handful of exceptions, it is twice as long as all of the other chapters in Genesis. I did not trust that fact. I looked it up. So, if you want to know, just grab my notebook afterward or just open Genesis yourself and look it up. It's real. So, the other interesting piece of information is that Christian pastors don't usually preach on this text. I went to see what folks before me might have said, and there was a great big old nothing out there, unless, of course, you wanted to preach on finding a mate. So, that's not my sermon topic. But we come on this text every 3 years, and so it gets skipped every 3 years, and there's nothing accidental about that. So, realizing that this text is ignored and not really viewed as sermon-worthy unless you are looking for a mate, and I suggest that you really don't take your camels and try to put gold rings in people's noses. But anyway, here I go, fearlessly preaching on this text that nobody likes. So, when Liam began high school, every teacher in every class, without exception, sent home information about how grading was going to be done. There would be homework, and it was expected that we would turn in the homework and it was going to be reviewed in class and that it would be counted. However, the sum total of the homework was going to be worth 5 or maybe 10% of his overall grade. The end of the term class test was going to be the real grade. It was anywhere from 80 to 90% of the class grade. Now, there were sound reasons for this, and I was given them at every meeting that I attended, and let me tell you, there were multiple during every term. Because we met to discuss the curriculum, the presented curriculum, as well as the hidden curriculum, and that's the meaning that is taught in the way that things are taught, as well as the null curriculum, those things that are totally not taught, that I was advocating be taught. So, Liam struggled in high school for many reasons. Many, but one of them was this value system of homework. Daily homework that we insisted was important, and not 5 to 10% important. But in our home, we said like 90% important. Because the lesson of daily homework is that what we do every day adds up. It builds who we are and becomes who we are, little by little over a long period of time. Translated into life, we said, homework is the equivalent to doing your laundry, cleaning your room, remaining present when days are good and when they're really not. It's having dinner, it's serving company and doing the dishes. Being able to show up, study and ace one test, that's great. It shows one kind of skill set, and I'm really glad if that can happen. But when I translate that into life, showing up for one test is like showing up for a birthday party or a graduation and being able to entertain the room for an hour. Again, that's a wonderful skill set, and one that is helpful and prized on that one day for an hour. And we explained to Liam that as we're raising a young man, raising a person in America, ideally, the goal is both and, right? Showing up for that daily stuff and that one big big stuff. And now you're saying, why do we care about this? Well, 67 verses in Genesis, written anywhere from the 10th to the 3rd century BCE, becomes very real in 2023 if you can translate it into real life. And nothing is by accident in Genesis. Bereshit, the beginning. Nothing. Why would this longest chapter, 67 verses, be given over to what seems to be nothing of substance? Honestly, why? And who cares? And when we look at the number of Christian sermons preached, I guess I get the answer, don't I? In the end, we're saying that homework, the humdrum of daily life, isn't worth preaching about, or maybe it's only worth about 5%. We can send a better message than that, can't we? Now, chapter 24 follows chapter 23. Chapter 23 tells about the death of Sarah. That's a big test moment. And Abraham negotiates her burial spot, and that's a major life event, especially in Isaac's life. It pivots him. He is grieving deeply. And Abraham grieves, but he seems to take it in stride. In chapter 25, he gets married again. But in chapter 24, we see Abraham doing something compassionate and fatherly. This is something different for him. He sends Eliezer, the name we know from chapters earlier, to get a wife for Isaac from his homeland. Isaac doesn't send the servant, Abraham does. And we might want to make an assumption that culturally this is the norm, but notice a few chapters later, Isaac's son Jacob certainly gets his own wives. So that's a little iffy assumption at best, right? But Abraham gives clear instructions about the land from where this woman will come, and biblical study lets us know that there have been years, in fact, hundreds of years, of editors writing back into the story, and there are many cultural reasons why Isaac's wife cannot be a Canaanite. All right. Even with that bias noted, let's talk families of origin for a moment, shall we? Families are an interesting blessing, aren't they? They can be the best or the worst. They can bring out every quality we hope to ever have, or they can open every wound we ever tried to heal. And sometimes they do these things simultaneously, intentionally or unintentionally. Let's hear it for the family. But still, Abraham sends his servant to the families he knows. And why? I think of it like this. I seem to have made a hobby of collecting wonderful stories and friends and knowing their family stories, their histories, and they make me smile. And the fun one I talk about today is a family that has this ancestry traced back to Charles Ludwig Dodson. Lewis Carroll, right? And each of these members of this family are wonderfully brilliant and creative, totally not in the same way. Some write masterfully, others dance, some are actors. They see the world in this way that is amazing. They have totally different professions. And I share this not to say, look who I know, because seriously, we may joke about being old, but Lewis Carroll died in 1898, and these folks never knew this ancestor, and their parents never knew this ancestor. Their lives never overlapped. But that kind of creativity or free-spiritedness that you might expect in a family line, it's there. And I watched how some of that came into being. And it wasn't accidental. And let me tell you, it's not genetic, no matter how some people might say it is, especially one member of the family. Here's just one example. From the earliest age, they sing and they play music. They sing children's songs, contemporary songs, especially right now, apparently Taylor Swift. Don't know why, but that's it. They make up songs, anything. And this happens as this mundane life is happening. This example I give you was happening while we were making sandwiches and lemonade. As it was happening, my friend started singing, and her 3-year-old daughter joined in. And my friend changed so that she was harmonizing. And then she brought her 6-year-old in and had him hit the right pitch while we're making sandwiches and lemonade. And then she invited me to join in, and I gotta tell you, I didn't want to join in. What I wanted to do was grab my camera and start filming, because I finally got it. I understood this powerful thing, this perfectly normal daily event, this routine. Harmonizing was how they built seeing and hearing their voice and the voice of another, blending as one. And I understood something about their family. And this part of their life, it doesn't define who they are. It doesn't limit them. It just opened one way of seeing and engaging in the world. Now, they had all these other choices that they make, all these different careers and these differing aspects that make up who they are as individuals. That origin, that ancestry, it's not the end of their story, but it's this part of it. And that's the story we're hearing with Rebecca. And then it has to do with the choices, the free will of the choices this family makes, I make in my family, you make in your family, Rebecca makes. And when Eliezer prayed to God that he would see and know the right choice, it was Rebecca that came forward to the well. It was Rebecca who chose how to respond to this stranger. Rebecca had a choice about drawing water, not only for the stranger, but for all of these beasts of burden. And not just a little bit of water, but enough water until they were satiated. These acts of kindness were her choice. And Eliezer's inquiry of lodging, notice that it was Rebecca who responded and extended hospitality. Hear the echoes of what Abraham did to the angels who came. That extending of hospitality, she did it. Now, of course, she said that the men of her household would, of course, extend hospitality. But if you read all 67 verses, you'll know she didn't ask permission. She invited them, and then she went home and told the guys this is what they were doing. And then they came out and greeted this guy. We give a nod to the genetics. It's very real. And those aspects found in her family of origin are there. But the heart of who Rebecca was, who Eliezer encountered, had everything to do with the spirit of her character found in her choices. The daily task of drawing water from the well, her homework, if you will. That's what Eliezer found important. You see, he knew Isaac was grieving, and the compassionate choice of Rebekah, the compassionate one who understands hospitality, and that strength of her spirit, the strength of will of her spine, this could be a good match, because it's possible Isaac's father has a strong spine too. In case we missed the point, the writers bring it home again, and we heard Jim read it to us. The men of the household, of course, made a deal that Rebekah was going to go be Isaac's wife, but in the end, when it came down to it, they said, "Ask her, will you go with this man?" It had to be Rebekah's choice, and she said, "I will." She chose to go, just as she chose then to walk forward and greet Isaac. You see, in a cultural time and place when we tend to dismiss this role of women, and we say that men made all the choices and had all the control, pay attention to why we have 67 verses, and pay attention to Rebekah. You see, she and Isaac had twins, 2 boys, Esau and Jacob. Esau was the elder, and he was the one set to inherit it all. But Rebekah had a choice, and her choice was Jacob. Jacob, who then wrestled with God and became known as Israel. Jacob, who had 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Israel. Our choices add up. And we never know what God's going to choose to do with our choices. Amen.